If you've been following the news lately, you've probably noticed that Venezuela is suddenly everywhere. Headlines, social media, even late-night talk shows. But why is the world's attention so sharply focused on this South American nation right now? What's really happening behind the scenes, and why should you care? In the next few minutes, we're going to take you inside the story that's capturing the world's attention, unpacking the drama, the stakes, and the real human impact. Whether you're a news junkie, a student of global affairs, or just someone who wants to understand why Venezuela matters, this is the story you can't afford to miss. Let's start with the basics. Venezuela, once one of the wealthiest countries in Latin America, is now at the center of a political and humanitarian storm. The country's president, Nicolás Maduro, is facing mounting pressure from both inside and outside his borders. The United States has ramped up its campaign against Maduro's government, launching covert operations and imposing tough sanctions. Meanwhile, millions of Venezuelans are fleeing the country, creating one of the largest migration crises in the world. The stakes are high, not just for Venezuela, but for the entire region, and even for global politics. But this isn't just another international crisis. What's happening in Venezuela is a test of democracy, sovereignty, and the limits of foreign intervention. It's a story of power, resistance, and survival. And as we'll see, the outcome could reshape the balance of power in the Americas for years to come. So, why is everyone watching Venezuela right now? Let's dive in to understand why Venezuela is at the center of global attention. We need to rewind a bit and look at how this crisis began. Not long ago, Venezuela was celebrated for its vast oil reserves and booming economy. The country's oil wealth funded ambitious social programs and made it a regional powerhouse. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Years of mismanagement, corruption, and over-reliance on oil revenues set the stage for disaster. When global oil prices crashed, Venezuela's economy went into freefall. Inflation soared, basic goods disappeared from store shelves, and millions of people found themselves struggling to survive. As the economy collapsed, so did trust in the government. President Nicolás Maduro, who took over after the death of Hugo Chavez, faced growing opposition. Accusations of election fraud, human rights abuses, and authoritarian tactics only fueled the unrest. Protests erupted in the streets, sometimes turning violent. The government responded with a heavy hand, jailing opponents and cracking down on dissent. International observers sounded the alarm, but Maduro's grip on power seemed unshakable. Then came the turning point. The United States and several other countries refused to recognize Maduro's re-election, calling it illegitimate. They threw their support behind opposition leader Juan Guaidó, who declared himself interim president. Suddenly, Venezuela was thrust into the global spotlight. The world watched as two men claimed the presidency, each backed by powerful allies. The crisis deepened, with sanctions tightening and the economy spiraling further out of control. For ordinary Venezuelans, daily life became a struggle for survival. For the rest of the world, Venezuela became a symbol of democracy under siege, and a warning of what can happen when power goes unchecked. As the crisis escalated, the international community found itself divided over how to respond. On one side, the United States and its allies in Europe and Latin America called for Maduro to step down, arguing that his government was illegitimate and responsible for widespread suffering. They imposed a series of economic sanctions aimed at cutting off the regime's access to vital resources, hoping to force a transition of power. On the other side, countries like Russia, China, Iran, and Cuba stood firmly behind Maduro, providing diplomatic, economic, and even military support. This global tug-of-war turned Venezuela into a geopolitical battleground, with each side accusing the other of meddling in the country's internal affairs. But the real cost of this standoff has been paid by ordinary Venezuelans. As sanctions tightened and the government dug in its heels, the economy continued to unravel. Hyperinflation wiped out savings, and shortages of food, medicine, and fuel became the norm. Hospitals struggled to operate without basic supplies, and families lined up for hours just to buy bread or cooking oil. The United Nations estimates that more than 7 million people, about a quarter of the population, have fled the country in search of safety and opportunity elsewhere. This mass exodus has created one of the largest refugee crises in the world, straining neighboring countries and raising urgent questions about how to respond. Yet, despite the hardship, many Venezuelans have shown remarkable resilience. Grassroots organizations, community leaders, and ordinary citizens have stepped up to help their neighbors, finding creative ways to survive and support one another. Their stories are a powerful reminder that even in the darkest times, hope and solidarity can endure. And as the world watches, the choices made by leaders both inside and outside Venezuela will shape the country's future for generations to come. Crisis in Venezuela is not just a story of political intrigue and international rivalry. It's a deeply human story, unfolding in the lives of millions every day. Imagine waking up to find that your local grocery store shelves are empty, that your paycheck is worthless by the end of the week, or that your child's school has closed because there's no electricity. For many Venezuelans, this is not a hypothetical scenario. It's their daily reality. Parents are forced to make impossible choices like whether to buy food or medicine, or whether to stay in their homeland, or risk everything on a dangerous journey abroad. These are the kinds of decisions that no one should have to make. Yet they have become routine for families across the country. The stories of those who have left are just as harrowing. Many Venezuelan migrants travel on foot for hundreds of miles, crossing borders into Colombia, Brazil, and beyond. They face hunger, exhaustion, and sometimes exploitation or violence along the way. Yet, despite these hardships, they press on, driven by hope for a better future. Their journeys have inspired a wave of solidarity across Latin America, with communities and aid organizations stepping up to provide food, shelter, and support. But the sheer scale of the crisis has overwhelmed many local resources, and tensions have sometimes flared between newcomers and host communities. Meanwhile, those who remain in Venezuela are finding new ways to adapt. Some have turned to bartering goods and services, while others rely on remittances sent by relatives abroad. In the face of adversity, Venezuelans have shown extraordinary resilience and ingenuity. Their determination to survive and support one another is a testament to the human spirit, and a powerful reason why the world cannot look away. While the human cost of Venezuela's crisis is staggering, the political drama unfolding at the highest levels is equally compelling, and it's one of the main reasons the world is watching so closely. The standoff between Nicolás Maduro and the opposition, led by Juan Guaido, has become a high-stakes chess match with global implications. Each side is backed by powerful international players. Every move is scrutinized by governments, analysts, and ordinary people alike. The United States, for example, has not only imposed sanctions, but has also hinted at covert operations and military options, raising the stakes even further. Meanwhile, Russia and China have provided loans, technology, and political cover to Maduro, ensuring that he remains a formidable force. This international involvement has transformed Venezuela from a domestic crisis into a flashpoint for global tensions. The country's vast oil reserves are a major factor. Whoever controls Venezuela controls one of the world's largest sources of energy. This has made the crisis not just about democracy or human rights, but about strategic interests and the balance of power in the Americas. The risk of miscalculation is real. A single incident, like a drone strike, a naval confrontation, or a disputed election, could escalate into a much larger conflict, drawing in outside powers and destabilizing the entire region. Yet, amid all this, the voices of ordinary Venezuelans are often drowned out by the noise of international politics. Their hopes, fears, and aspirations are just as important as the maneuvers of presidents and diplomats. As we continue to follow this story, it's crucial to remember that behind every headline and every political statement, there are real people whose lives hang in the balance. The question many people are asking is, how did Venezuela reach this point, and is there any way out? To answer that, we need to look at the deeper roots of the crisis. Venezuela's troubles didn't start overnight. Decades of political polarization, economic mismanagement, and social inequality laid the groundwork for today's turmoil. The rise of Hugo Chavez in the late Idzo brought hope to millions who felt excluded from the country's oil wealth. His government launched ambitious social programs and nationalized key industries. But critics argue that these policies were unsustainable and fueled corruption. When oil prices were high, the system worked. But when prices crashed, the economy unraveled, exposing the weaknesses that had been papered over for years. After Chavez's death, Nicolás Maduro inherited a country already teetering on the edge. His government doubled down on many of Chavez's policies, but without the same resources or popular support. As the economy spiraled downward, Maduro's grip on power tightened. Elections were marred by allegations of fraud, and opposition leaders were jailed or forced into exile. The government's response to protests grew increasingly violent, drawing condemnation from human rights organizations around the world. At the same time, the U.S. and its allies ramped up pressure, hoping to force a change in leadership. But the path forward is anything but clear. Some argue that more sanctions and international pressure are needed to break the deadlock. Others warn that these measures only hurt ordinary people and risk pushing the country further into chaos. Inside Venezuela, many are simply focused on surviving from one day to the next, hoping for a future where they can rebuild their lives in peace and dignity. Despite the uncertainty, one thing is undeniable. What happens in Venezuela will echo far beyond its borders. The choices made by world leaders, the resilience shown by ordinary citizens, and the shifting alliances on the global stage are all converging in a moment that could redefine the future of the Americas. Will Venezuela find a path to recovery and renewal, or will it become a cautionary tale of lost potential and deepening crisis? The answer is still unwritten, and the world is watching. Because the outcome here will shape not just the fate of a nation, but the very principles of democracy, sovereignty, and human rights in our time. If you care about the future of freedom, justice, and stability in the world, you can't afford to look away. The next chapter in Venezuela's story is about to unfold, and it's one you won't want to miss.